It's Monday, so welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Brott, and my guest today is Callie Spears, a 2016 Van Buren graduate who is a design strategist and UX UI designer with Link in Oregon. Callie shares how a typical day looks as a designer, how her experience with co-ops through the University of Cincinnati propelled her career, her experiences with both in-person and remote work, and much more. Whether you are interested in a design career or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Callie shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today we have 2016 Van Buren graduate Callie Spears with us. And she's going to be talking about her career as a design strategist and working with user experience interfaces for websites, all of these things technology-wise that make the websites that we look at appealing and good for the brands that own these websites and so forth. So Callie, I'm interested to hear about what you do, and I'd love to start out by just starting with, what does a typical day look like for you as a design strategist?
Yeah. So I think you kind of mentioned I had two different roles at one point. I used to be a UX UI designer, which is probably maybe a better way to explain kind of what I do, because, the design strategist brings in elements of the UX UI, but then it adds a little flavor on top. So I'll just start with UX UI.
Okay.
So the UX piece is like the user research part of it. That would be me, on the daily basis. I'm probably having interviews with people just to see, end users of the product, to see really what they need, what they want, whether they have good feedback about what's currently available. I'll create customer journeys or, user personas and start to build designs around that. And that's when the UI comes in. So that stands for user interface. That's effectively like mobile apps or websites or platforms. So you're doing the design for those things. But you're really, you can be a UX designer and you can be a UI designer. They don't have to be together. But I would say when you're both, you can really, you get to have the first part of the process, and then you get to have the deliverable in the second part of the process too. So that was kind of like where I started at CompuCom, my previous job to where I'm at now. And then as a design strategist, this is a new role for me, and then also a new role for the company that I'm at. So we're still kind of trying to figure out exactly what it means together. But basically, I think they want me to do more UX research. So really leaning in heavily on the user end. And then also, create visuals for that. I still have the design element, but then also really leaning into strategy as well. So that would look like communication plans and, social media posts. So I'm doing a little bit of writing, doing a little bit of, thinking strategically as well.
So how big of a company is Link?
Link is fairly small. When I joined, there was 12 people, but now we're up to 20.
Okay.
But yeah, still really small.
Are you the only person that does your job, or is there more than one of you?
There is more than one of me, but they are pretty high up. I think they're VP of design strategy. So right now it really is just me kind of trying to figure out what that looks like for a design strategist day to day.
Okay.
Actually, I think we just added one more person. So,
Okay.
figuring it out.
Right. So small company. Yeah, they're building, they're growing, they're going through growing pains, I'm sure, as they grow and so forth.
Yeah.
So really interesting with all of that you're doing. Now, when you were a senior in high school, is this what you were thinking you were going to do? What were your thoughts when you were a senior?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't think I had any clue. I mean, I knew I liked graphic design, and that is where I went to school at UC, so I went for graphic design. And I think at that time I thought that that was specifically marketing design, or advertising art. So I didn't really know the design world and like what it actually opens up to be. Um, but then going to college, you kind of see all the niches in place. So that was kind of where I went into UX design, UI design, and really just loved that. So no, I did not know
Right.
where
So
I was gonna.
most people like you as a high schooler, they think, oh, graphic design.
Mhm.
And like you said, you just didn't know all the different options there were within graphic design. What are some of the other options beyond like UX, UI?
Yeah, yeah. So there is marketing design, there's advertising art, but then there's also environmental design. So this is like wayfinding and signage. I did a co-op for an environmental design company.
Okay.
So this would be like if you went to the airport and you were trying to find baggage claim, like what are all the signs that lead you to that point, and how do you, as a designer, make sure that they're not getting lost like in the space. Um, and then I also did exhibition design, so that's museum development, which was so cool. And kind of you're working with industrial exhibition designers, and they're kind of creating the 3D elements. But then as the graphic designer, you can you'll do like wall graphics, or you'll do like interactive things if you know, or like playing a game, or like even a screen, and like interacting with the screen in the environment. And you're also thinking about like sound and like, where can people rest when they're at the museum? You're thinking about the whole experience as well.
That
Um,
that's interesting because yeah, I mean myself, I show up at a museum, hey, everything looks nice. I don't think
yeah,
about all of the thought that's gone into that, or at the
totally.
airport, finding my baggage, finding my gate, etc.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
have,
interesting.
yeah, I have created a bathroom sign, so it's in everything. It's in everything.
So talking about the University of Cincinnati, sounds like you had a great experience there. And I was really impressed with the list of co-op experiences that you had. You were in Mason, Ohio. You were in San Francisco, all kinds of different places, Silver Springs, Maryland. Can you talk a little bit about what you learned through those co-ops and why those were so useful? And maybe was it difficult to pick up and move for a summer across the entire country or to Maryland? That's still a pretty big jump. What were those co-ops like, and what did you get out of those?
Yeah. Co-ops were really, really cool. It was full time, 40 hours a week. You would have a mentor at the company, so you would check in with them a lot. UC like sets you up completely with those companies, so they'll help you reach out to them. They'll help you sign a contract. They have a lot of connections. Probably previous people have already co-opted there and now work there, so they
Right.
can help you out too. So yeah, UC is great in that regard. I think what I learned through co-ops, yeah, I did a co-op in all those previous things that I mentioned, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I think co-op really helps you like live in that world for a little bit and then decide if that niche or whatever is for you.
Mhm.
It also helps you, I think, just really figure out what a work environment is like. That was my first time just working on a team or like in an office. So it really helps you just understand that context of a company. And packing up and moving was really difficult. I
Yeah,
just,
and to be
yeah,
there for such a short time, you just get there and get
yeah,
settled, and then you're moving back. So
yeah. But it helped me realize that I can do that, I guess. And also that just like discovering different places. And at times, like I would live with friends, and then other times I would live like with people that, like I didn't know anybody else in the city. So I really
mhm.
had to learn how to like meet people, make friends. That was probably a whole nother learning experience that co-ops bring that you don't really think about in a career context.
Right, right. but that is important. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. So I know Cincinnati has a long tradition of being very strong with their co-ops and a lot of programs. Are there any
Mhm.
other schools that you either maybe considered or that you now know of that might also be good, strong graphic design, people leading up to where you are now in your career, other schools that might have also gotten you to where you are today?
Yeah, I feel like I need to ask around like the design community more because I do like I know UC, and if
Right,
you're from Ohio, in-state tuition is great and they're going to be great.
right.
I think I also looked at Kent State at one point. I think they have a great fashion design program, and I thought maybe that correlated with like other places of design or other
Mhm.
pieces of design as well.
Right, right.
Um, and then I think OU has a really great advertising art major.
Okay,
I remember visiting them as well.
okay.
But yeah, I don't know if I have like I wasn't in it. I don't know anybody that specifically went there,
Right, right.
um, but can vouch for UC.
Yeah, well, and yeah, it's interesting. All those schools, like you said, have their own niches
Yeah,
that, if there's something specific you want, you can probably find that school even within the state of Ohio to allow you
yeah.
to do what you want to do. So you spent 2 years at CompuCom, have been at Link for 4 months, and both of those positions have been remote after you spent pretty much all of your co-ops that appeared in person. How do you like working remotely? Is that something you think will probably continue in the rest of your career, or I don't know? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just bought a standing desk, so I'm like standing
No.
during this meeting. So I'm never going back into an office. I like have everything I need now. But yeah, I mean, obviously pandemic accelerated all of that. I wasn't remote before. I was working in person, which has amazing perks. You're able to make connections easier. You have the camaraderie of people. When you want to collaborate, you can just be like, let's go, to this meeting room and like talk about this really quick. Um, Being remote doesn't have that, but I think that there's effective ways to, still do those things, hop on calls with people or like have group chats, or just using like we use Mural or Figma where you can kind of like be in there at the same time and collaborate with like post-it notes or things like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but yeah, being remote has allowed me to really live where I want to live. Moving out to Portland, that probably wasn't possible. My CompuCom was based in South Carolina, so I would have had to move there if it was in person.
Right.
And yeah, it just gives me a lot of freedom, which I enjoy, and have already like, I don't know if I can go back to an office now, maybe hybrid, but like
Right.
I really enjoy having my own space here and like the flexibility that it allows. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You did pretty much all your co-ops before COVID, correct?
yeah,
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 and then right as you were getting out into the world, then that hit happens, and so yeah, you've seen both worlds, and yeah, that had to be a little bit jarring to
yeah,
uh, to have to do everything remotely. So
yeah.
so when you were at CompuCom, you oversaw the creation of an AI chat feature, and obviously AI is huge now. I guess what was your role in that? I know you said that again, you're trying to make sure that it's accessible for people and the look and all of that stuff. Are your design goals the same for what you did with AI compared to what you're doing now with Link, or is it different because they're completely different projects? Anything you can share about that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So role at CompuCom for the AI chat feature. That was my first project when I started at CompuCom. So hit the ground running there. And it was a small design team. So it was me, another person, and then a developer. So I was like the main designer, main researcher on this project. So when I first got there, I was like, okay, let's think about perceptions of AI chat features. This was like 3 years ago. So
Okay.
you didn't see them quite as much. And I think people still had a negative reaction to them because they probably weren't built very well at that time.
Right.
So yeah, what are people's perceptions? What do they expect it to do? What can we actually make it do? Like trying to figure out all these things contextually. And then once I got the research finalized, I moved into ideation. So wireframing out what different screens would look like. What do we want the voice to sound like? Sometimes as a design team, you'll have a copy editor that'll kind of write things for you, but we were small. So I was doing a lot of writing too, which I really loved. Like responses wise, what the AI chat would say. And then after ideating, you finalize on a design and you work with the developer to develop it. So they'll code it in the website or wherever it is. Which the developer that I worked with at the time was my manager. So they were actually really able to help me learn a little bit of code at that time too. So we probably coded it for 2 months, and I was trying to code like CSS final touches on it, which was really cool. And I think if you are in UX UI design, that's definitely like a really cool, thing you can get into as well is coding and development. So that was like the whole process of it. Design goal wise, I mean, I think it definitely varies from project to project. Sometimes you want to make something that is really fun for a user. Sometimes you want to simplify a process. Sometimes you want to just make something more accessible and, more available to users. But I think like overall, you're always trying to make something simple and more effective for the people that use it, which is something that I really like about what I do.
Right. You mentioned the term wireframing.
Yeah.
What, like, is that anything like storyboarding or anything, or is that completely different?
Yeah. No, exactly. It is.
Oh, okay.
It's just like putting boxes where different elements might be. So like this is where my button's gonna go, and this is where I want to have the close button, and this is where, the text is gonna live.
Right.
So it's just like a more simplified version before you get into final design and prototyping, where you're actually making this whole like, yeah, I kind of forgot to mention that. You're also making the prototype where people can interact with it fully and just see if they enjoy the interaction points and how it moves from one screen to the next. And if they just like it overall, like a demo.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you've been in a lot of different positions with your co-ops. Obviously, you're in your second position after graduation, so forth. I always tell students relationships are so important. Uh, have you seen your career be influenced by any of the relationships that you developed in your co-ops or even, in your two professional positions that you've had so far?
Completely. Yeah. My first job at CompuCom, actually, the person that, I guess, what's the word? Like, helped me get into that role,
Mhm.
or like, yeah, helped me get in there, was my old professor. So
Okay.
I had actually worked with him for a while. I don't even think I interviewed like really for the role. He just was like, I know what you do. I know your work. Like, if you are still available and want this job, like it's there for you. So I was like, I mean, especially because coming out of college, I had probably applied to like 50, 60, 70 of jobs already. Like I was just sending stuff out, and I really wasn't finding junior positions for me or even mid-level with my co-op
Mhm.
experience as well. So the fact that he was able to get me in on that ground level at this company was amazing. And yeah, so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Link was the opposite. I just kind of applied. I just
Oh,
like
okay.
a cover letter. And somehow, yeah, it just kind of worked out. So I think, you can always do it both ways, but I don't know if I would be at Link if I hadn't have gotten that first opportunity,
Right. Right.
because I had like networked or, knew that person.
Right. Now, did you have to like have a portfolio or anything that you shared and they were able to look at that and see what you'd done in the past? And
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, portfolios are pretty big. You'll have a resume, you'll have a cover letter, and then, yeah, as well, you'll also have this full portfolio of like 4 to 6 projects that you've done in the past. And, depending on whatever design you want to do, specifically for me, I had a lot of like user research in there. I had a lot of context and like an introduction and maybe more text than probably other designers that are more focused on, finalized visual elements or just, like true graphic designers. But yeah, it's definitely a big thing. I think every employer will ask for it.
Right. As you think about the positives and negatives of your career, are there any big ones that jump out? And obviously, I think you clearly enjoy what you do, so I don't think any of the negatives are just horrible, but things that people might want to consider if they're going into this job. What are some of those good and maybe some negative aspects of it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think positive, I was going to say, like, I do enjoy what I do. When you're given the funding and the resources to do it, it's so fun and you can really do it well. And you get that like acts of service feeling because you are making something better. I think negative wise, or just something to be aware of, I guess, is that I do feel like that UX UI designer is more on the innovative end. And so a negative in my career was that I did get laid off from CompuCom back in June of last year. So I think when people or when tech companies are worried about the economy, if you're in the innovative sector, they might not always, they're focused on operations and, making sure that what they have is running really well and maybe not something that they're wanting to do later on. So I have a lot of like colleagues right now or just friends getting laid off in the tech sector, designers. So I think it can be kind of hard when you're tied to the economy sometimes as a designer, because you're the innovator, you're the person trying to make new things. So if they don't want to do that at the time.
Right. Well, that's that's good for people to know that
Yeah.
the economy's
Not
good.
all design, not all
Right.
design, not all companies. This is just, something that I experienced, I
Right.
guess.
Right. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about pursuing this field?
Yeah, I was trying to think of like tangible advice, but I don't know if I have like tangible advice other than just like be curious about it. If you really like listening to people's experiences or like even hearing them complain about something and you're like, oh, I want to make it better, like this would probably be the thing for you. Um, I would say lean into your experiences as well, because a lot of people will come into UX work through other backgrounds or other career backgrounds. So um, if you have experiences in something else, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't switch over to this and be like a really valuable person on the team, because a lot of times you want to hear different perspectives and have people with different experiences to really round out the research or the whatever you're really doing. So
That's interesting. And I guess you talked earlier about writing and, you've
yeah,
learned coding. And so,
yeah,
it seems like you need to be a pretty well-rounded person to be in this field because all of those things can be valuable in the field. So that's interesting.
totally,
Yeah.
totally, yeah.
So you now live on the West Coast. Do you think you would have been able to move out there as easily if you hadn't done your co-op in San Francisco?
No, definitely not. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. Yeah, I think if I wasn't used to like packing my things up and kind of going, I probably wouldn't have. But I'm really glad that I did. It's really great out here. It's a beautiful environment and have met a lot of really fun people and cool people. Um, but yeah, I think doing that every 4 months for a little bit, like kind of pushed me in
Right.
that place to want to do it again.
Right. Any biggest difference between the Midwest and the West Coast?
Probably, yeah, I really love the environment out here. You're like an hour away from the sea and the coast, and then you're like an hour away from the mountains on the other end. So you can really I've really gotten into camping and hiking. You can go surfing if you want to go surfing. There's so many extreme sports out here of like rock climbing, dirt biking, there's just a lot to do, and I really like the easy access that you can get out here to different things.
Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, to live that close to so many different things has to be very convenient.
Yeah.
Well, good. You've provided a lot of information. So as we wrap up, is there anything that you now know about careers or life that you look back and say, man, I really wish I had known that when I was in high school?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it kind of relates back to some of the stuff I've already talked about, but just like you can do whatever you want to do. Like there is a job out there that you don't even know about yet that if you're interested in this certain thing, like you can probably find it. Like there's just so many opportunities. And I think something I would tell myself back then, or even in college as well, like starting out college, is that um, you can really listen to what you enjoy. Like you don't have to be this ideal designer that knows how to like sketch or knows how to like is always drawing and does all these specific things. If you're interested in psychology or writing or other things, you can really combine that and be, I don't know, you can really be the career person that you want to be. You don't have to fit into these boxes of what you think other like the perfect career person of this is. Because now I'm like utilizing the writing and, I'm not a psychologist, but like I use a lot of like psychology resources
Right.
in my day to day. So it's like I've made the job that I kind of want to do.
Right. Well, yeah. And I think that's the goal of, or should be the goal of everyone to, I want the career that makes me happy, but also, again, like you said, you are helping others every day to have better experiences. And so, yeah, I think you've definitely found the thing that you were meant to do. So that's
Oh,
very
yeah.
cool. That's very cool. So, Callie, I really appreciate you sharing all of this about your career, and good luck as you continue on your career journey.
Thank you. It was so nice talking to you today.
Thank you for making the Joust About Careers podcast part of your day. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story. And to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with me. And as always, come back next week to learn even more just about careers.